So, Paul, can you clarify for me the definition of traditional owners and of Aboriginal communities?
Sure. So traditional owner corporations represent the people of a nation who's connected to a particular country. All Aboriginal people are connected to a particular country, but when we're talking about traditional owners, we're talking about a specific place and a community who has roles and responsibilities in caring for that place. Whereas Aboriginal communities are made up of people from all different locations, and they may live, for example, myself living on Wurundjeri country. However, I'm a Gunai man, and so I live off country, but I'm still part of the Aboriginal community. So there's a difference there that as a traditional owner, I have roles and responsibilities to my country, as the corporations do, and an Aboriginal community is the community more broadly. And I guess what's really important to recognise is that Victoria's Aboriginal community is really diverse, and to understand that diversity and understand that we have a lot of commonalities and challenges that we share, but traditional owners really are the crucial bridge between our ancestors and our elders, and our roles and responsibilities associated to that are ensuring that our culture, our people, and our country is strong and prosperous into the future.
Diana David, CEO of Reconciliation Victoria, what is engagement to you and when is it required?
Councils play an important role, a local leadership role in achieving reconciliation, I believe anyway. Our local councils are closest to working with our communities, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. Effective engagement, respectful engagement, and reconciliation with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples strengthens our communities, and it benefits everyone. It strengthens local government and increases Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander participation in local affairs. Reconciliation at that local level is possible and it can work, but only when Aboriginal perspectives are listened to. And when Aboriginal perspectives and that voice is listened to, I think it informs council's plans and strategies, and it shapes policies and programs and projects, but most importantly, it strengthens self-determination. Engaging with Aboriginal community is essential to ensuring local government services are effective.
Chris, there's an important role for local governments in creating partnerships with Aboriginal communities, and those partnerships are vital to creating the kind of livable, inclusive and sustainable communities and natural environments that we all aspire to, and it draws on that long traditional role that Aboriginal people have played as the custodians of the land. What we now have is a range of mechanisms and opportunities for participation and collaboration between councils and traditional owners, and it really highlights the importance of the listening and the acting in partnership so that traditional owners and Aboriginal communities are included in the work that councils do in a partnership way. I'm also conscious that councils will have to adopt community engagement policies as part of the new Act, and I think they need to be in place by March 2021. So that's an important part of the work that we do in creating inclusive communities.
Traditional owner engagement looks like, many things, Chris. And I think from the VLGA's perspective, we would say that it's required all of the time. We recently ran a program called Your Community, Country and Council, where we felt that although it was the VLGA's program, the engagement with First Nations people, which was the focus of the program, needed to happen by engaging First Nations people to actually run the program on our behalf. So I think that's the first principle when it comes to engaging with traditional owners, is that you do need to actually have traditional owners, First Nations people, leading those conversations in partnership with you. If you are the decision-making or policy-making body that is, supporting the work that you're trying to achieve. From a council's perspective, of course, we've now got treaty legislation in Victoria, and the making of treaty or treaties will have impacts for local communities. So therefore, the advice that we have from First Nations people is that councils need to just start having the conversations, bringing in, encouraging traditional owners and First Nations people to participate in the many advisory committees that councils have, of course, supporting them, encouraging them to stand in local government elections, but just involving them in the conversations, and in fact involving other non-traditional owners and community members in those conversations as well, so that all parts of the community can work together, and what might seem to be a little daunting or overwhelming becomes less so.
So, Paul, when it comes to local government, why is engagement with traditional owners so important, do you feel?
Okay, so when we talk about cultural obligations to care for country, and that's through a traditional owner holistic worldview, where we are part of the landscape and part of country, and that's the way that we see ourselves. And looking after country and the environment is something that we have a deep responsibility for, and it's really challenging for us when we're prevented from doing that. And I think there's, in so many different ways, government decisions that relate to land and looking after land have prevented us from being able to fulfill our cultural obligations. And it's really important that we have policies and procedures that enable us to do that. So we have a really strong interest in being able to connect and activate our rights, and that we are able to realise any other opportunities around sustainable business, other economic opportunities that may fall out of that. And over the time, we've recognised that, and that's part of our core function. But we've worked with the local government minister, local government Victoria, and to make sure that any of the new government act has captured the ways in which local government can work with traditional owners. And I guess essentially the result is that the Local Government Act now recognises traditional owners for the first time, and as distinct municipal community under the definition of the Act. And that means, like all other municipal communities, local governments are now obliged to consider the rights and interests of traditional owners who live, pay rates, conduct business in that community. So it's a really important and significant change that will lead to traditional owners being able to meet their obligations and realise their aspirations.
So, Diana, what does engagement mean in terms of reconciliation for traditional owners?
Victorian traditional owners have managed their connection to their lands and waters and communities over many thousands of generations. And the Victorian traditional owner groups know what's best for their community and their country. They're best placed to make those decisions. I encourage councils that are ready to take the next step in their reconciliation journey is to start to listen to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices and turn that into action. Take action. It benefits everyone. It strengthens respect. It strengthens relationships and opportunities. So all Aboriginal communities can experience a prosperous and self-determined future.
Yeah, so the really important part of engagement with traditional owners is for councils to ensure they're engaging with the traditional owners who are recognised in their municipal area through the Aboriginal Heritage Council. And councils can find more information to ensure that they are connecting with the relevant traditional owner groups. It's also, I guess, worth acknowledging that there'll be municipalities where there may be more than one traditional owner group in the particular area. There might be also places like Melbourne where one traditional owner group covers multiple municipalities, and Wiradjuri would be an example of that. So I think it's just making sure that those voices are able to come to the table in partnership, and for councils and traditional owners to work together where appropriate on behalf of the community. It's also worth noting that many Aboriginal people don't live on their traditional lands anymore either. So I think we need to just acknowledge that in those situations, they wouldn't be looking to speak for country on where they might be if they're not the traditional owners, and they would defer in those situations to traditional owners on matters of country.
Well, reconciliation is really around meaningful consultation with Aboriginal Victorians and communities to build that trust that is so important when engaging with any member of the community, not to mention those that are more disenfranchised than others. So reconciliation is really the recognition of and the active engagement in strategies, initiatives that bring together and build trust between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal members of the community. The VLGA and Reconciliation Victoria run an annual awards program that recognises some of the amazing initiatives that are being undertaken in the local government sector in Victoria and in the community. Of course, the Hard Awards, which is what I was referring to, Help Us Achieve Reconciliation Together, is a program that is supported by the state government and forms part of the Victorian Aboriginal Local Government Action Plan, or VLGA, which is a Victorian state strategy that predates treaty but was really implemented to support reconciliation in the state.
Diana, what advice do you have for councils who would like to find out more and get support in relation to engaging traditional owners?
Reconciliation Victoria's Magali website is a great place to start. It encourages councils to share engagement practices, and through this demonstrates how successful engagement can lead to positive outcomes with and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And in this way that councils can progress their work and move forward. Councils, I also encourage you to reference the Victorian Aboriginal Affairs Framework. Have a look, check that out. I think to gain an understanding of the Victorian government's approach and working with Aboriginal Victorians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, organisations and wider communities to improve outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Check it out, and it gives you an understanding of the 11 guiding principles of self-determination.
Paul, it can be a bit complicated, can't it, with overlap of traditional owner areas and different municipal areas. How do you see that being managed in this new dynamic, do you think?
Yeah, well, that's right. Naturally, local government areas don't align with traditional owner areas, and there are many overlaps, as you say. So I think traditional owners cover a wide area, and for traditional owners and government to come to local government to come together and try not to, duplicate. Traditional owners have many demands on their time, and recognising that there are potentially many local government municipalities that overlap their areas. There's really an opportunity to be able to come together and through a traditional owner lens, come together to be able to work collaboratively to meet those expectations of traditional owners and recognise where the synergies are between those municipalities.